Manchester United are absolutely terrible, and as a City fan, that is the best thing I could ever say. But why is this actually the case? We're joined by Man United fan Rye, as me and him are going to discuss Manchester United being a shambles.
Yeah, we do, mate. Yes. Looking forward to this one. I don't think we're going to have enough time to cover everything, but we can definitely discuss why United... it's not like it's a new thing, is it? This is a continual thing, year on year. We're underachieving. Trying to pinpoint one thing exactly is going to be difficult, but I'm here today to help you and other fans who obviously hate United to understand what it's exactly like to be a United fan, not from Manchester, but
Oh yeah. Great Mancunian accent from Rye. Obviously, I've chosen somebody who is not from Manchester, because there's only one club in Manchester, as you can see by the badge I'm pointing at right now. But no, all jokes aside, we're here as a rival fan, and as a Man United fan, we're going to try and get to the bottom of why Man United are absolutely a shambles. We are obviously going to start with the manager, the main man that's behind the helm of the team, and that is Ten Hag. And the lack of style of play that he has, according to recent news today, is apparently that he's lost half the dressing room, which isn't a normal thing for a Man United manager. That seems to happen quite frequently. You look at Mourinho, Van Gaal, David Moyes, Ralph Rangnick, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in the last 5 that have lost the dressing room. But Rye, what do you think of Ten Hag's style of football? Is there one? Is it good when there is one?
So we're in this continual issue now, whereas every fan wants to put the blame on someone, but we're really finding it difficult because we're in this cycle now of just getting through manager after manager after manager, and it almost feels like the players are kind of throwing the manager like a lamb to the slaughter. But there's also the factor that Ten Hag, as you said, tactically has just been way off the pace. Some of his decisions, some of his transfers this past summer have been really, really questionable.
Definitely come on to transfers in a minute, right?
Good.
In terms of the style of football, I've obviously got all my points written down that we need to go through.
There is no style of football, that's the problem.
So when we see this graphic here is when Manchester United go away to the Big Six. That is the only time that we actually see some style of play, and as well at Old Trafford. At the Big Six, Manchester United sit deep in, they play high press, and they look to get to the counter-attack to Rashford, Anthony, Martial and Højlund, whichever one of those two start up front. And obviously the graphic here shows the results of how bad Manchester United have been away at home to the top 9. This graphic is obviously credit to Sky Sports, and Roy Keane did a bit about it with Micah Richards yesterday. But Rye, with the results against the top 9, with only one draw in there, and that's to Tottenham away last season, it's not been good enough, has it, from a United fan point of view? Yeah,
unfortunately, I've been everywhere. Every time I've gone on any form of social media, that graphic has just been staring at me in the face with Roy Keane's quote. It's something we can't escape, and it is a major issue. It's almost similar to like England not being able to beat the big teams in the big tournaments. United, that graphic, you can't say anything, you can't defend that graphic. But when you do mention the style of play going away and stuff, you mentioned counter-attack football. This is counter-attack football that we were playing under Ole, Rangnick. You know, this isn't, again, like necessarily a Ten Hag thing. It just seems like we've got no other choice because we've tried playing out from the back, and Nana's just having howler after howler. So it almost feels like the only way we can actually get forward and start attacking teams is just sending it down the channel, sending it to Rashford, Garnacho and so on. It just seems to be simple tactical decisions. But when it comes to even like this past weekend or the past 3 games, questionable things that Ten Hag's done with leaving Varan on the bench. You mentioned earlier about falling out and losing half the dressing room. There's all kinds of stories coming out. It's hard to kind of put together a style of play and gel a group of players and play a certain way when you've got players in and out of the team all the time. I think that's one of the main reasons as well. Yeah, we've been unlucky with injuries, but Ten Hag's he's reluctant to drop players like, to be fair, Bruno shouldn't be dropped, he's playing quite well lately, but Rashford, for example, he won't drop Rashford, but then he'll drop players like Varan. So for me, the style of play and the starting lineup kind of go hand in hand. When United had all that success many years ago under Fergie would very rarely change the starting lineup. Pep does tweak the starting lineup, but his foundation, his base, you know, with the Man City lineup, generally speaking, is always the same, isn't it? We mentioned off there earlier on about you know, the goalkeeper, Ederson not playing, and how you kind of suffer. When you miss those key players, it impacts City, doesn't it? You must admit that as well.
Well, of course, obviously the foundation of City's team is Ruben Dias, is Rodri, is Kevin De Bruyne, and is Erling Haaland. And obviously the players that are around those walls in that City team kind of chop in and chop out. Obviously, we've not had a left-back since Gal Clichy. Kyle Walker's a pretty rock in that team as well. Laporte came in for a little bit. Obviously, he's gone to Al Nassr now. We've got Gvardiol, we've got Nathan Ake, we've got Manuel Akanji, all that come in, John Stones, all that usually come in alongside Ruben Dias. It's usually Stones and Dias as the main two. The midfield works round Rodri and Kevin De Bruyne. Last season, it was obviously Gundogan. Bernardo Silva can play in there as well. Obviously, we've had players that come in, such as Mateo Kovacic, Mateo Nunes, that will play in that position. And then the wingers, we got Grealish, we got Doku, we got Alvarez, we had Mahrez last year, all built around this rock. But while we're talking about the personnel, let's talk about Manchester United's personnel, and we'll talk about the individuality of the players that Ten Hag has, that he also has complained about him. When Ten Hag was playing at Ajax, playing great football, arguably could have won that 2019 Champions League if it hadn't have been for a last-minute goal by Lucas Moura. Don't worry, Ajax fans, we're used to Tottenham taking stuff from us as well as a City fan. But the individuals in the Manchester United team is really suffering on all of the managers. This was complemented by Jose Mourinho. He just could not get Pogba to start playing. And it seems as though the people that are working behind the scenes at Manchester United are more bothered about the players on the pitch than the managers coming in to manage the team. Pogba stayed, Mourinho went. We're looking at the individuals playing now. There's no team collective at Manchester United, and this again goes back to the style of play. You play high press counter-attack against the big six, and then against the smaller teams there is absolutely no style of football. It's not even hoof it in the box. Yeah, we'll play a bit out the back, then we'll start hoofing it up the pitch, then we'll try and get the wingers involved, then we'll try and get Bruno to create something, and nothing works. But ultimately Man United do have good players to be able to break these smaller teams down. Results such as 2 last-minute goals against Brentford. Obviously, Everton was a great result for Man United, but on another day, Everton could have scored 5 in the first half. We're looking at a 1-0 victory over Luton at Old Trafford. That is a poor result against a poor side. A 2-1 win away at the worst team in the league, Sheffield United, settled by a brilliant Diogo Dalot goal, and then also a 1-0 win away at Burnley, who are not much better, settled by another brilliant goal. Is it the individual in this team, are costing Manchester United or currently helping them to get points?
It's taken moments of magic, pulling something out in Fergie time. It's taken something to rescue these points. And obviously, was it last week, the week before, we were top of the form table. You know, we won 4 out of 5. I guess the one we lost would have been the Manchester derby. And you mentioned it just then. We managed to scrape a win against Burnley, Sheffield United. I mean, Burnley, up until this weekend, they hadn't even won a home game. They hadn't even drawn a home game. They had no points on the board from any of their games at Turf Moor. And yet we made it really difficult to get out of there with a win. Sheffield United, you just seen them get battered by Burnley 5-0. We struggled against Sheffield United. It's taken moments of magic by Bruno. It's taken a Garnacho overhead kick. But not only are we just scraping results, the performances aren't just bad, they're just bland. There's nothing there. It's like the players have just... It's really, really frustrating. When I've been to Old Trafford, and I was there for the Brentford game when McTominay scored the 2 late goals, it was painful to watch. Everything is really painful to watch. I mean, comparing it to a couple of years ago under Ollie and Rangnick, at least you had those moments of magic, maybe in the Champions League with Ronaldo. There was something... Granted, you know, the Garnacho goal and stuff, but there's very little to get us fans off our seats and excited. And again, that goes back to Ten Hag. So many United fans are like me, where they're so on the fence, they don't want to see another manager come in. Because again, essentially, Mark Goldbridge has made reference to this. It almost feels like the players are getting the manager sacked. When we've got players on massive contracts sat at home, Jadon Sancho on like 350 grand a week, playing the PlayStation. You've got Anthony Martial that jogs around for 5 minutes and, you know, 250 grand or whatever he's on. You've got these players on massive contracts, but then they're not even playing. Like Varan sat on the bench, and you've got Johnny Evans playing and Maguire and stuff. It is an absolute mess.
Is that the manager's fault? Not playing Rafael Varan, who is a World Cup winner, a serial Champions League winner. I think he won 5 Champions Leagues at Real Madrid. Him alongside Sergio Ramos was one of the best centre-back pairings in world football for about 3 to 4 years straight, and he can't even get in this Man United team. So what hope does that give a player that has won all of these trophies, and Victor Lindelof's getting picked ahead of him?
The thing is, granted, Varan hasn't been at his best. He's not playing like he was at Real Madrid, but again, he's not getting a lot of game time. And the thing is, we have this real ability at Man United to turn a fantastic player, a Champions League winner, a World Cup winner, and just turn him into such an average player. Onana last season, I think even Pep said he was interested in or complimented Onana. He was a great goalie, played in the Champions League final, everyone wanted Onana. We've turned him into Taibbi and Roy Carroll. We've turned him into another joke Man United goalie. I know David De Gea, had a few howlers when he started, but we just have this real ability to turn decent players into average players. And it's frustrating. It is really frustrating.
I don't doubt that. But what I can't understand about Erik Ten Hag is the decision on bringing in Andre Onana.
Yeah.
When he goes, oh yes, Andre Onana will fit my style of play. Well, we're in December and we still don't know what your style of play actually is.
You can't have a ball-playing goalkeeper with a back four of like Johnny Evans, Maguire, Lindelof playing as left back, and Dalot. You can't play out from the back with that defence. Like, Maguire plays better for England because of Southgate's style of play, as opposed to how Man United play. It's all well and good having a goalie, but if the players around him aren't going to complement his playing style, that's again the frustrating thing. I know we've had injuries. I know Martinez is injured and Varan was injured, and Luke Shaw again is probably the most underrated Man United player in the team. Rashford has been quiet, partly due to the fact that he hasn't got Luke Shaw behind him, overlapping runs and stuff. I know we were poor against Newcastle, but you can see a difference when Luke Shaw's playing. The problem is United have spent so much money, and granted, we always want to go in on the Glazers and stuff, but we have spent money, that's the reality of it, but we've overspent money on players that essentially aren't making any difference to the team. And that again goes back to Ten Hag and his signings. I know you're going to bring it up.
Don't worry, I've got that in my list, but adds number 3 on my list. While we're talking about Maguire, I want to talk about him briefly, and Scott McTominay as well. And we look at these Man United players, who is on that pitch that is fighting for the shirt? And as a blue looking in, it's great to see all of this going on. But 2 players that I've picked out are Harry Maguire and Scott McTominay. 2 of the players that you wanted to sell to West Ham on a double deal during the summer. You wanted to get rid of these 2 players.
It's really ironic,
and they have turned out to be your best 2 players this season. Scott McTominay with a big goal away at Sheffield United and those 2 late winners, a late equaliser and a late winner against Brentford. And Harry Maguire was excellent on Saturday and has been for the last couple of weeks, coming in, having his captaincy stripped off him, getting booed by his own fans when Alan Keegan read out his name before the match, and to turn that into what a player that he's actually been. I know Man United are conceding goals, I know Man United are not playing well, but at least he is fighting for the shirt.
Yeah, I mean, you can't knock Maguire for actually, when you watch him, he is passionate about what he's doing. I was there at I think it was a Copenhagen game when I think Maguire scored the header and then Onana saved the penalty in the last minute. And there was so much fight within those players. But it all comes down to, again, the levels of a City, a Liverpool and Arsenal and us. There's such a gap. Like, yes, these players are fighting for the shirt, but the reality is, if we are ever going to fight for a title again, they're not good enough to get us to where we want to be. They're doing their part, they're playing for the shirt, but you can't help the fact that they're not quite good enough to get us to that next level as well. So it's a really difficult situation, because as you mentioned, the ones that are fighting for the shirt aren't necessarily the ones who are long-term going to be good for Man United and winning trophies, in my opinion.
Well, let's talk about the ones that are good enough, arguably, to fight for the shirt. And we'll start, obviously, with Marcus Rashford throwing his gloves off when being substituted away at Newcastle. Another awful game for Marcus Rashford. Only 85 yards coverage in the second half. It was an absolutely disgraceful performance. And his attitude of recent has been absolutely shambolic towards playing for a massive club, which ultimately is Man United. We'll talk about Martial, who's been there for 8 years is, and what has he actually done when he came in? Players that should be playing for the
Rashi, you might have seen the little stat. You've been bringing up some stats. Have you seen the stats where Rashi might well be back? Because did you see the stat whereby he was doing great prior to the 21-22 season when Ronaldo came in, split up from his girlfriend, had a terrible season. Back with his girlfriend last season, had an absolute blinder, the best season Rashford's had in years. Start of this season, splits up with, I think her name is it Lucia, something like that? Really down, head down, bad season. But rumour is he's back with his missus, and the form guide shows that when Rashford's back with his missus, he's firing on the pitch as well. So hopefully Rashi's going to be good. Coming back to Højlund though, obviously his form in the Champions League is different from the Premier League. But the good thing with Højlund, you mentioned playing for the shirt. There's fight in Højlund. I love the fact that you can knock the long ball up there. Højlund to fight for that ball. Martial to just stand there, go down. There's no desire with Martial to win the ball, to play for the shirt. I think I can speak on behalf of every Man United fan who just feels Martial's time is up. Martial needs to be gone in January. His time
Martial's time was up probably 6 years ago.
Yes.
The minute that he got that injury and then came back and just couldn't be bothered.
How long has he been there? 9 years or something? It's ridiculous.
It was 2014 or 2015 he signed. Well, talking about signings for Manchester United, I want to touch on how much money that Erik Ten Hag has spent. And he comes out in some of his horrific interviews to say that he's not been backed by the club. And this is actually false. He has spent nearly 447 million euros in the space of 2 markets, 4 if you count in the January markets, and these are the players that he's signed off the top of my head. We got Antony, Mount, Onana, Højlund, Casemiro, Jadon Sancho, and arguably not one of those players other than Højlund has made a good impact on the football club. Casemiro arguably last season, he came in, he did a job, got you a League Cup, got you to an FA Cup final, provided a bit of stability in front of that back four, but now his legs have gone. And paying 70 million euros for a 33-year-old or a 32-year-old at the time of signing Casemiro, I think is horrendous business. And this isn't the fault of the staff working at Manchester United. This isn't the fault of the transfer board of director John Murtough, whoever it is. This is the fault of Erik Ten Hag, and these are the players that he wants to sign. I think Mason Mount has been an absolutely atrocious signing with the formation that Ten Hag wants to play. He plays 2 central defensive midfielders to sit in front of that back four, or you play 1 and then have a Christian Eriksen. Mason Mount plays the same position as Bruno Fernandes, and every day of the week, every Man United fan and every person that watches football, you take Bruno over Mount. Not even a debate.
When you're watching England, right? How do you feel, or how did you feel, over the past few years, every time you saw that starting lineup for England and you saw Mount's name on that team sheet? I used to go ballistic every time I saw Mount playing.
What made me ballistic as a City fan was Mount would play over Phil Foden.
It was ridiculous, right? And then when I heard he was coming to Man United, I said to the missus, how many times do I shout at the TV when I see that Mount's playing for England? Now I've got to put up with it for United. But the fact is, I know he just got injured, but even Ten Hag has bought Mount and doesn't really know how to use him. He tried playing him with Bruno. It doesn't work, as you mentioned. 2 players of a similar position. So again, that's why the questions come out on Ten Hag as well, because his signings, they're either players he knows from Holland, from Ajax or whatever, or they're, name signings like Casemiro and stuff. But United have got this track record again of buying the big names, haven't we? The older, aging superstar that maybe isn't the best signing for United long term. We obviously wanted Frankie de Jong, didn't want to come, and ended up buying Casemiro almost as a backup. Had a great season.
Well, right, as you say that about bringing in older players, sorry to interrupt, about bringing in older players versus a new player, Højlund's come in at 22 years of age, unknown at Atalanta, turned out to be a decent signing, not proved it in the Premier League yet, but he's still got time. Like you said, at least he's showing fight. Would Harry Kane, for 2 years or 3 years, been a better signing for Manchester United, a proven goal scorer? He's going to come in, he's going to score 30 goals for 3 years, and then he's going to go back to Tottenham and break records. He's staying in his country. Now he's had to go over to the Bundesliga, learn German. He's already scored 24 goals for Bayern Munich. Is that a mistake from Man United not signing Harry Kane?
I'll be honest, I don't think it was up to us. I honestly don't think Harry would have come. Like, I think we were probably his only option in terms of the Premier League. He wouldn't have gone to Arsenal for obvious reasons, or Chelsea. He had his chance of City, and obviously got Haaland now. United would have been the only option. But I think Harry probably looked at the situation at United and probably thought, F that, if I'm honest with you. Obviously, I would have loved Harry Kane at Manchester United. I think most Man United fans, I did see a few people in the summer, I think Goldbridge said he'd have preferred Osimhen and stuff like that. But I just think it's been a bit snobbish. Everyone would have took Harry Kane in the summer. I do think Højlund has got potential, but as most people would tell you, probably Højlund, along with a seasoned, proven striker, would have been the better choice. Ease Højlund in over time rather than just put him in there. And we've got our backup option again is Anthony Martial. So we spent all this money, as you mentioned, and we almost still feel like we've not got enough players. That's the problem at Man United. Like, we spend so much money, overpay for all these players. They're either sat at home playing the Xbox because they don't get on with Ten Hag. They're either got some scandal going on in Brazil. They've got all this stuff going on. We're left with no players. We're left with the youth players. Mainu, who played brilliantly, by the way, or we did a couple of games ago.
He has come in and he has been a breath of fresh air in that Man United midfield. I really actually like.
Should have saved our money and just got the youth team out there. It seems crazy. It just absolute madness. That's the problem with United. It's just madness on all fronts.
Where do Man United go from here? How can it get any better for Ten Hag's Reds? Is it a case of Ten Hag needs to go? From a fan's point of view, I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so amongst my friends, let's just address the elephant in the room. I'm probably the most stereotypical Man United fan you could have had on here today. Not a ball mank, obviously sounds a bit farmery. It's got all the merch around him, lining the Glazers' pockets, and it's blindly optimistic. So you've got the stereotypical United fan today, so you're very lucky. So I asked all my United fans here in Cheltenham in Gloucestershire, because there's a lot of us, and I made the controversial, bold statement a couple of weeks ago that I am Ten Hag out. And everyone's like, no, we can't keep going through managers. But if you just look at, like, we've addressed everything he's done. For me, he's lost the dressing room. He's lost, like, the big name players, the leaders of the dressing room aren't part of his plans. We've got no, you mentioned about counter-attacking and stuff. For me, that's not really a style of play. That's kind of hit and hope. I don't feel like when you watch United, we can pinpoint any particular thing that Ten Hag's doing. The amount of times I've been to Old Trafford this season, he's took Højlund off and put Martial on, and the whole crowd just go ballistic. I think the crowd are starting to... The crowd stayed on his side. I feel like I'm not in a minority anymore. I think that the tide is turning, and I think especially with Sir Jim coming in and bringing in new backroom staff, I think there's some big games coming up. Obviously, we've got Chelsea, we've got Liverpool coming up as well. There's some big games that are really going to test United. We've mentioned those stats, and if those stats don't change soon, Ten Hag's time is definitely up. And for me, it's not just Ten Hag though. Whoever does, if we get rid of Ten Hag, this is a big if. Whoever comes in has to start getting players off the books. We thought when Ten Hag came in and ruffled his feathers with Ronaldo, we thought this is what we want, a no-nonsense manager who's going to get stuff done. But all he's done is pissed everyone off, and they're sat at home on big contracts. So it hasn't actually amounted to anything. So we're in this never-ending routine as United fans of saying, do we sack the manager because we'll get another manager in and the same thing will happen. It is really, really difficult as a Man United fan at the moment. But again, we have to stay blindly optimistic because we're not going to have any Champions League success to look forward to. We're probably not going to have any Europa League success to look forward to. We're definitely not going to have any Premier League success to look forward to. So it's very hard to be motivated. And I think the only motivating factor is the fact that things can't really get any worse. So that's how I feel about the situation at the moment anyway.
Fair enough, right. From obviously a rivals fan point of view, I think Erik Ten Hag coming in last season, obviously getting third in the Premier League, and then obviously winning a Carabao Cup and getting Manchester United to an FA Cup final with an average group of players was a remarkable achievement for Erik Ten Hag. And there was obviously no questions asked. He was the right man for the job. But this season, like you said, he's come in, he's lost the dressing room, he's literally turned in to the Manchester United manager that we all expected him to become. And he has lost the dressing room. He has no style of football. Obviously, Old Trafford is currently falling down, as all of the City fans are saying. But from a Man United point of view, what can Erik Ten Hag do to grip these group of players and turn them and actually get them playing some decent football?